Hi friends in Nolia's neighborhood, it's Hannah and we are back for another exciting edition of Art Making Together. Really excited that you're here, and this week was inspired by something that I really love and I'm excited to share with you. Have you ever been ice skating before? I grew up in New England, so ice skating was something that I did a lot in the winter time because there's not much else to do than get out there in all the snow and cold and make the best of it. So we were recently reading a story that we got from the library called Mice Skating. It's a great story. I'm going to share it with you today, but it inspired this project that we're going to work on together. When you're skating on a pond, you go about and you're kind of swirling and twirling and gliding along, and what you might not realize is behind you, your skates have been leaving beautiful swirling, twirling lines kind of carved into the ice. It's really beautiful, and after a fresh, clean pond, when it's been skated on, it's then covered in all sorts of whirling, twirling, and swirling designs, which I think is really neat, and it inspired me to share with you guys this week some salt painting. And salt painting is cool because you can do anything you want with it, but you can definitely make whirly, twirly, swirly lines like you would see in the ice on a pond after skating. And you can kind of create your own pond with these whirly, swirly lines. You can also, as always, do any other thing you want to with salt painting. This is just what I found inspiring this week. You can take the idea and the process and turn it into anything you want to. So let's go ahead and get started and look at what supplies we need this week. Okay, so for salt painting, you have to get some stuff prepped up in advance. It's one of those projects that you can do all at once, or maybe do a part of it and then come back to it later. Whatever you want to do is great. Now, we started out using some cardboard, and this is cardboard that we had already painted and decorated. You guys know that we like creating with cardboard at our house. So this is our base, and on top of it, I made the whirling, swirling lines. You can see I did that with just regular old Elmer's glue, and you know, that kind of drips out, and you can use your arm to swirl it all around and create whatever design you want to. After the glue is on your surface, whether you decide to use cardboard like we did or paper, you can go ahead and just sprinkle a ton of salt on top of your glue. And you really want the salt to cover up most of the glue. You can kind of tip it to and fro to make sure that it's all covered. And then over the trash or over the sink, you can knock the excess off of your surface so that the salt is on just your design, nowhere else on your creation. So once you've got that base set up, you're ready for the painting aspect of this project. Now, you can use watercolors for this, that's what's best. We don't have any watercolors at our house right now, so I used food coloring. I went with orange and blue. And all you gotta do to create your own watercolors is just a couple of drops of the food coloring and then some water. So I have these little ramekins, and inside of them is my homemade watercolor. And the last thing that we're going to use over here at our house is a pipette. This is a pipette. You can squeeze the water up in it and then use it to drip. If you don't have pipettes at your house, not everyone does, you can just use a paintbrush and get it like kind of sopping wet, and then let the drips go onto the salt. It should have the same effect, or you can do really, really gentle pours on top of the salt. You'll have to kind of experiment. This is half art project, half experiment. Oh, you wanna help? Our assistant is here. Okay, Baker's gonna help us with the most exciting part, which is the actual salt painting. So let's get started. Okay, friends, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna show all of you and Baker all at once how to go about this project. So I'm gonna take my pipette and I'm going to stick it in and squeeze the top to slurp some of my watercolor up into the pipette itself. Then I'm gonna hover above my salt and just drip it on. And you'll see that the salt kind of absorbs it and it will slowly move. Baker's really excited to try. You ready to try, buddy? Do you want to do the orange?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Ready? Dip it in and squeeze. And then let go. And then we're gonna, ready? Squeeze the pipette. Great. And my friends, you can just go along all of the bits. Baker's is getting a little wild. If you're a little bit more gentle, you might not have so much runoff. Okay, my friends, so as you can see from our demo, if you're really heavy-handed with the watercolor on top of the salt, you might have some leakage out onto your creation, and that's okay. But if you're gentle and do just a little bit of drip at a time on top of the salt, it should carry your paint color really nicely and stay right on the line of salt. It shouldn't stray too much at all. Either way, they turn out really pretty. I will show you our final project in just a bit. But for now, let's read the story that inspired our ice skating swirl style salt paint, mice skating. Okay, mice skating. During the cold winter months, most field mice take cover, tunneling deep underground, burrowing into farmhouse walls, nesting in hollow logs. But not Lucy. She loved the feeling of snow crunching under her paws. She loved how the frosty air made her whiskers freeze, and most of all, she loved wearing her fluffy wool hat and the pink pom-pom on top. It did more than keep her head warm, it kept her heart warm too. It made her brave, it made her bold, it made her bloom. Lucy loved winter. Her friends did not. "Your fur is freezing," said Mona Lisa when Lucy came inside. "Your nose is dripping," said Millie. "Your teeth are chattering," said Marcello. "I know," said Lucy. "Isn't it wonderful?" She asked her friends to join her, but they wouldn't budge. "We are comfy and cozy," they said, "warm and toasty till spring." So Lucy donned her hat and dashed outside all by herself. She caught snowflakes with her tongue, flapped her arms to make snow angels, and built snow mice, lots of snow mice. But Lucy wanted to share winter with her friends. She tried bringing it to them. First she brought snow cones, then a giant icicle. She even planned an indoor snowball fight. It was a soggy flop. "Please come outside," begged Lucy. "Not till it's warm," said Mona. "Not till the flowers bloom," said Millie. "Not unless that snow is made of mozzarella," said Marcello. One day, Lucy skidded on an ice patch. She slipped, she slid, she soared. Lucy couldn't wait to try again. She fashioned skates out of pine needles and scurried to the pond. At first she wobbled. She fell more than once, but with practice, soon she was ice skating. Ta-da! Her tail twirled with joy. She couldn't let her friends miss out on this. Lucy gathered supplies and returned underground. "Finally, you came to your senses," asked Mona. "Ready to thaw out?" squeaked Millie. "Tired of being provolone?" asked Marcello. Lucy hummed happily. "You'll see," she said. Lucy skated every day. Then she danced back to her burrow, trailing bits of yarn or piles of pine needles. The other mice wondered what she was doing, but Lucy didn't say a word. She just kept working quietly in her room. Her friends grew more and more curious. "What on earth are you up to?" asked Mona. "Don't keep us in suspense," said Millie. "We must pecorino," cried Marcello. After a few finishing touches, Lucy was finally done. She placed a new hat on each mouse's head. "These will keep you warm," she said, "inside and out." The mice marveled at their new hats. "I have something else to show you," said Lucy. "Follow me." And to her surprise, they did. One by one, the mice emerged from underground. Lucy ushered them to the pond. Then, as the sun twinkled across the ice, Lucy took off. She spiraled and swirled, swizzled and twizzled, loop-de-looped. She was flying. "Marvelous," cried Mona.
Spectacular, called Millie. Brevissimo, cheered Marcello. We want to try it, squeaked her friends. Look, my friends, you can see behind Lucy's skates a line that her skate carved into the ice, just like we were talking about. Lucy handed them their skates and they teetered onto the ice. They wobbled, they fell, but with practice, soon they were mice skating. Whee, squealed Mona. What fun, squeaked Millie. Who knew winter could be so Gouda, said Marcello. I did, said Lucy, beaming. The mice cheered. Again, you can see all of the lines in the pond caused by their skates. And together, they bloomed like spring.
Isn't that a fun story? I look forward to ice skating again on the pond one day. Probably not until I'm able to visit up north, though. I don't think our ponds in North Carolina get cold enough to freeze. Certainly not safely frozen for us to skate on top. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I really hope you enjoy creating with the salt painting style. There's a lot of things you can do. Creating a ice skating pond type of painting is really just scratching the surface. You can make many, many designs and mix all sorts of different colors to create all kinds of awesome artwork with salt paint. Baker is really into the pipettes, so he is over here still working on a little color mixing, right, buddy? You say bye to our friends?
Bye.
We will see you next time, friends. Have fun and keep creating.